Well, Oregon is underway recruiting in 2024. Should they just not go after high-level quarterbacks given the transfer portal now? We'll discuss. Here we go.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. Like, comment, subscribe, please, and thank you wherever you listen to or watch this show, which today is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. And my man Rian Winter, Sports Chat 503 in the house, joining me today. He's always one-upping me with the backgrounds. Look at what he's got today, everybody. The American flag is waving. He's at the Oregon coast. The sun is setting for those of you listening on podcast. I can see the Pacific Ocean behind him. He's at the beach, but he's grinding as always. My man, it is good to have you on the show as always.
So good to have you. You do have me in the pillow game, though. Your pillow game is
I do.
Strong.
I got to shout out my mom and my grandma. They put their heads together and got me a lovely Christmas present to spruce it up a little bit. And the pillow game is indeed strong. I love the puddles one.
If there's anybody better than Mom, it's Grandma.
That's exactly right. The two people who are always thinking of you the most. Dads are great. We all love them, of course, but they could go 2 days and be like, I wonder what my son's up to. That moms, it's nonstop. It's constant. Kind of like how recruiting is constant. And I was talking about this earlier this week on the show and wanted to ask you, Ryan, like, Ty Thompson, to this point, hasn't worked out. And Oregon went after, if you go back, Nico Iamaleava. They were in hot pursuit. Didn't work out. And then Dante Moore, Kenny Dillingham left. Didn't work out. Where do you stand right now on Oregon recruiting high-level quarterbacks from the high school ranks, given what the transfer portal is now?
Yeah, and the track record is not great. The best quarterbacks have not been the best star-rated quarterbacks, right? Marcus Mariota. Herbert with the injury, I get it in high school, it probably would have been a little bit rated higher, but it's still out of Oregon would have been downgraded. It's a great point you make, and it's a good time to talk about this kind of stuff. The off season is the time to kind of ponder these type of questions, and I love this. This is what sports chat's all about, man. I really think that you have to go after the highest level kids all the time, and if they stay, they stay, and if they go, they go. But the transfer portal now has completely changed the game, especially with the quarterback position. I feel like there's going to be kind of that same type of opportunity. Do you want a puppy, or do you want to get a dog that's actually been housebroken somewhere else and can, give you years of experience later? I had to put my pup down. She was a rescue, but she came ready to go. She knew all the routines. She knew all the drills. She knew everything else. Versus my dog right now, puppy, had to teach everything from the ground up. So there's a lot to that. And I think there's a lot of teams that might be cautious about taking a kid on as a project for 2 or 3 years, putting all that time and energy into the kid, and then he transfers to the other team and beats them down the road. I mean, we're going to have the Tyler Shuck effect when we go to Texas Tech. We're going to see that live. So, it's a tough dilemma. I still think you have to go for the best kids possible out of high school. But, these guys that are in the transfer portal, a lot of them, they're grown men. They've already been around. Some of them might even have kids, might be married. I mean, we're in a completely different game than we ever were before. And you got to roll with it. So I really like the idea of having a guy like Bo Nix come in as a transfer. That eased my mind. When people were like, Ty Thompson should have been the guy. I was like, well, I don't know. I know what you're going to get with Bo as long as he stays healthy. And I think that a lot of coaches probably are in the same predicament now, that that the transfer guys might be a little more proven than the guys coming out of high school, even if the guys coming out of high school look the part and are the 5-star.
Yeah, I think it actually reminds me a bit of someone who we're going to talk about later in the show, and that's Kel'el Ware, who's transferring away from Oregon. And, when he went away, I ran through the highest rated recruits that Dana Altman has ever brought in. And most of them did not work out. Not over 50%, not 40%. Like most of them did not realize their full potential for a variety of reasons. Kel'el Ware wasn't able to really find the groove. Bull got hurt. And you just keep going down the list. But I still think you have to go after these guys just understanding what the hit rate is going to be compared to what we'd like it to be, right? We want it to be 100%. We want every 5-star recruit for football to produce the way Kayvon Thibodeau did, to produce the way Noah Sewell did. But sometimes you're going to have a Dante Manning and a Justin Flo in there, or Kel'el Ware, or just, whoever you want to point to there, that for one reason or another, it doesn't quite work out. But I don't think that should make you go away from wanting to go after these highly talented kids. And by the way, Ty Thompson is going to be a fascinating case study here of if he's coming out of high school, and the scouting report on him, by the way, was that he was pretty raw. Like, no one was expecting him, not the 24/7 guys, not Oregon fans. Nobody thought he should have been starting as a true freshman. But now, going into year 3 this year, him not playing, I think, is why people get angsty on that front. But if he ends up starting in 2024 and does well, then you might look at it completely different and say, okay, maybe some of these guys, even though they're more highly rated, do need years to develop the way, some other guys. Justin Herbert was not the same quarterback as a senior as he was as a freshman. Some guys are just like that.
Oh, I totally agree. And, I kind of was thinking while you were saying that, basketball players, they're all kind of like quarterbacks, right? There's all 5 of them on the floor because there's so little of them, right? And so you have to hit a home run on all of them, And yeah, Justin Herbert. I mean, look at the production he had, the difference he had in body type, everything else. Just junior year to senior year, and you see, look at Michael Penix Jr. We're talking about him making just a huge leap when he went to Washington. Well,
massive. His first 4 years, I didn't expect Washington to be that good in 2022 because I saw him bringing in Penix and I thought, oh, okay, that's a low ceiling but kind of high floor starter, but it's nothing special. Leading passer in the country.
And that's kind of what I like about the transfer portal. It works for you, it works against you, it works for your team, it can work against your team a little bit. But I really like the transfer portal in that sense, and I do think that high school development is different than college development. Just brain chemistry, body chemistry. There's so much development that happens. And you get these kids who, for whatever reason, maybe develop a little bit earlier than others. They're throwing the ball around as a freshman, or, I saw the one kid, he was like an 8th grader and he was playing high school varsity sports somewhere in the country. And you get these quarterbacks, they get all cushioned up in the pocket. They don't really have a lot asked of them, other than just make the right read, throw the ball to the right place, these kind of offenses. And they get hyped up pretty good. And all of a sudden now a lot's expected of them. That's why I kind of thought that Dante Moore, it was so refreshing to see him just come out and dominate in that San Antonio game.
Yeah, the East-West Bowl, yeah.
I mean, I was like, whoa, because normally most of the time, you get these guys and they don't really separate themselves. They're all kind of in the same, pack. He clearly separated himself. So, but now he's going to go into UCLA and everybody's going to expect him to be the man. He's going to have to be like Caleb Williams on day one. Good luck with that. There's going to be a learning curve with him at Westwood too. And look at Caleb Williams. I mean, even Caleb Williams really benefited from the transfer, going to a different conference, possibly weaker defenses, this, that, or the other. When he was at USC, he really blew up. So
also on Caleb Williams, did not start right away. He's going to be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. Bar none, he's who I would take.
Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, exactly. He came in and was a situational kind of wildcat quarterback and then eventually got there. Cade Klubnik at Clemson might become a really, really good quarterback. Did not start this year because they had, another former 5-star in DJ Uiagalelei in front of him. Like, sometimes these guys do take time. And I understand why it's tough to have that patience, but I think the stars can put people's perceptions out of touch with reality at times. I got one more question I want to ask you, Ryan, but the question I want to ask everybody is, why haven't you checked out FanDuel yet? It's America's #1 sports book. The tournament gets back into action tomorrow. Today is Friday, sort of. That's when you're listening to this, of course. Tomorrow's Saturday, tournament's there, and you got to go to FanDuel where you can get a no-sweat first bet, up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon today. Claim your no-sweat first bet. Don't miss your shot at a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. You can bet everything, money line, point spreads, to which team will be cutting down the net. Hard to bet against UConn right now. Man, they look good. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. Make every moment more with FanDuel. So, Ryan, one more question on the quarterbacks, and then we're going to shift over to the transfer conversation for the men's basketball team. And it applies to the women's basketball team as well. Do you think that Oregon is just going to be fine, bringing in transfers every year? Like, do you think they could just go to the portal every single year and never, fully develop a high school quarterback that they recruit again to be the starter?
No, I think your room, you have to have a blend of all those guys in the room to be able to make a quarterback room successful. I also moved over a little bit just so people can grab a little sunset view if they're not interested in looking at my face.
It's relaxing me as I look at it, man. I can't imagine the people watching on YouTube can't see it. And if you're listening on podcasts, it's this big, vibrant American flag just cutting through the sunset out there on the Oregon coast. It's just absolutely beautiful. Anyway,
Oregon,
continue.
man. It's like a Grant McComey spot from the Pacific Northwest. Okay, anyway, I really am a big fan of the transfer portal, but I don't think you can live and die by it, because I think it's kind of one of those things where you're still going to need to develop talent. You're still going to need to have guys in the room. At the quarterback position, yes, you probably could get guys in from the transfer, but transfer guys usually want to play. So maybe you can bring one in a year, but maybe it's every other year, every other 2 year sort of situation because, nobody's going to want to come to transfer portal and sit, especially if it's a 1 year deal. And that's kind of the other thing about the transfer portal. There's kind of different groups of guys in there, right? There's the graduate 1 year, got to get it done now. I want a different experience. Maybe I can have a new opportunity somewhere. Maybe I can get to the NFL. Or it's the guys who just got there. They got 3 years of eligibility. So there's a lot of different opportunities now. And I think you just have to take them as best as possible. But the quarterback room, I feel like you have to have at least 3 to 5 that you can really depend on because you never know with injuries. You're one play away. And if you have a good team, that one backup quarterback could really get it done for you. Think about that Ohio State team that beat us in that national championship. They had the third string quarterback. And you had to have somebody, and he diced Oregon up. We made him look like a Heisman Trophy candidate. And it just is a situation where I feel like my dad always used to talk about that year where Justin Roper started in the Sun Bowl. And he's like, dude, that was like the fifth. He had the 5th string quarterback out there that year was Masoli. And then Masoli turned into being the starter after that. So you never know what you have, and you never know what you're going to get. So I think you always have to bring guys in who are young, but you also have to look for the transfer portal guys.
Yeah, and Oregon, I don't think has had the highest level of backup quarterback play for quite a while, honestly. Everybody, I'm sure, thinks back to the Alamo Bowl. And, that was less on Jeff Locke than it was on, not being able to get clean snaps. But he didn't – he wasn't.
Problems.
Yeah, there were a variety of problems there. But I think back to, in the Chip era, Darren Thomas got hurt. And Brian Bennett had to win a game at home at Autzen Stadium, which helped. But that was a top 25 Arizona State team. That was a good team. And he had to beat them at home. And if Oregon doesn't win that game, I don't remember how the standings finished, but they might not have gone to the Pac-12 championship game because, Stanford was in the mix at that time and whatnot. But you do need to have a guy ready at all times. And I hope Ty doesn't get called into action this year, but he could. And I'd certainly rather have a guy who's got that sort of potential there. And obviously he needs to be developed and be able to execute the offense. But Brian Bennett played a handful of really important moments over the course of his career. So I like what you're saying about the quarterback depth. And even though you brought up those demons about Ohio State, that's a very, 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 very valid point. Like you'd rather have an embarrassment of riches, right? Because you never know.
Well, and going back to some more PTSD, that Washington game last year, when Bo went down, I'm on the sidelines in the stadium thinking, okay, Ty, here's your shot.
But they didn't trust him. But they didn't trust him to throw the ball. They just handed it off.
Exactly, and then they got that 4th down, and it slipped, and the whole thing. But my point is that mentally I was like, now you're up, buddy. You got to go. And I had all the faith in the world that we're going to get that done. It was going to be just the next thing, next man up. But yeah, there's a real, there's a real disconnect that feels like between the coaches and the backup quarterback sometimes in the trust value. A lot of those guys get out there, they hand the ball off, they look to the sideline and wait for the starter to come back in.
All right, let's move to basketball because I want your thoughts on Kel'el Ware, who came in with immense talent, 2nd highest rated recruit the program has ever brought in. They've both come in under Dana Altman. Bol was ahead of him, and I don't think they're in the same category because Bol got hurt, decided to shut it down, and then go to the NBA. Kel'el Ware wasn't hurt this year. And look, when he came in, Ryan, I thought he was going to have an adjustment period. I thought he'd be raw, but I saw the potential. It was very real. It still is very real. He's in the portal. Someone's going to pick him up. Might have already picked him up by the time you're listening to this. But I want to kind of throw the same question at you for Dana Altman. Is his hit rate on these big 5-star recruits, and we're gonna have 2 more, basically 3 with Shellstad coming in this year. It's been really, really low. Like, what do you make of Ware's inability to find a groove with the Ducks? I'm bummed about it because his potential is so high.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. You got to talk a couple of different things there. One about Kel'el Ware, two about Dana, right? So I think Dana had a lot of success early in the transfer portal before the big transfer portal era, right? With the classic graduate one and done sort of situation, and guys being able to come over and add something and give something to the team. And I think he kind of leaned on that. There might have been an opportunity for him to kind of lean more toward the transfer portal and look away from the developmental guys, right? And I feel like he kind of took that bait a little bit. Might have got him in trouble because he might have been a little lean in his development when they really needed it, right? Because they didn't have both. The development of the 5-star guys, I think, again, go back to that thing of talking about high school quarterbacks might not live up to the hype. These basketball players come in with a lot of hype. And Kel'el Ware has a lot of hype with him. I don't know if he'll ever live up to it because what we saw in high school was such a unique player, 7 feet tall, could really affect the on the defensive side, really a good rim protector, and just really soft hands, good scorer down low, the variety of the little moves, kind of old school jumper, turnaround jumper, back to the basket game was pretty good, but he just wasn't strong enough. And I also think mentally, I don't know if he really was that much of a dog out there. I think that there were some times when he got kind of fired up and he got kind of into it and really kind of played at a higher level. But I feel like the game really changes in high school to college when it comes to the intensity. The intensity of the college game is just, it's a different level. And I don't know if he ever really matched that intensity to be able to play at the level that he needed to. He also came onto a team, just so happened, with 2 other bigs. One of them was going to play a lot in Dante, and the other one is a huge developmental guy and a major piece to the puzzle, which is Nate Biddle. And I think that Biddle's this year really exploded and just took a lot of minutes away from Kel'el Ware. I think that, early on, Dana had that one press conference where he got pissed and he said, hey, I'm changing up these lineups, and these guys kind of have expectations they're going to get playing time, and I'm not going to play them as much anymore. The next game, he didn't play at all.
Ware sat for an entire game. He was a coach's DNP.
He did not play for the entire game, and that was right after that press conference. And that he also, the move he made there was he benched Quincy and put in Rivaldo Soares. But I was like, bro, that was a huge shot across the bow. That was a major signal, man. And I was like, okay, well, Dana already sat this kid for the whole game. And, there's an opportunity for the kid to play and redeem himself, and he did. And I think he played really well in the NIT. I think he showed something, but just too little too late. And I don't know if he ever really met the expectation. Bol is like an outer space type of player. I don't know any coach who's ever been able to figure out how to deal with that guy or work with him. He's an absolute freak. He's like a exotic car. Like, it's hard to keep them on the road. Like, it's a very weird game that he plays, but he plays a game that no one else has really played, and Kel'el Ware is not like that. Kel'el Ware is a guy who actually looks like he would have been a great center in like 1972. He could have played the down low post game, good soft hands, not going to get the ball ripped from him, get rebounds, get, back to the basket stuff. But the thing about him is if he wants to play in the NBA, he's got to be able to put the ball on the floor. He's got to be a lot faster and a lot quicker. He's not. He's slow footed. He plays a kind of a lazy slant. The guy who I give him a comp to, even though he's not as good a shooter, is Sam Perkins. Sam Perkins in the old school NBA played like a step slower than everybody, it felt like. Sleepy Sam, they called him. A teammate of Michael Jordan at North Carolina. And this is a guy who was a great player, but was a big who just developed his shot and found his spot in the NBA. I don't know what kind of future Kel'el Ware has in the NBA. He definitely has the ability to get in there with 7-footers, but I don't know if the 7-footer game is even respected nowadays. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens to him in the future.
Yeah, I have one more thought on him that I think Oregon fans will. It'll be easy to put into context why he didn't really work out the way we were hoping he would, but Built Bars will always work out the way you hope they do. And by the way, it's still the month of March. This is the last day, but the Built March Madness bracket is here. We know you have a favorite bar or puff, and now's your time to make it count. Go to builtmarchmadness.com to vote for your favorites. You know, I've already voted for the Mint Brownie bar, and you can put in whichever bar you want all the way. When you do so, you'll be entered into a drawing where 50 lucky Locked On listeners will get a free box of Built. Not only that, one Locked On fan will win a 12-month subscription to Built to have Built's best bars or puffs delivered monthly straight to your door. Don't walk, run to BuiltMarchMadness.com right now to vote for your favorite bar or puff and pick up a box while you're there. You can vote every day in March, so hop in quickly and support your pick. Ryan, I loved what you said about the kind of sleepy nature to Ware's game. And when he would get a little more amped up, you saw a lot of potential from it. And you saw him impacting the game in a major way. And by the way, I think his growth on the defensive end was very real from the beginning of the year to the start of the year. Right? At the beginning of the year, at both ends, he was just a big body. And every now and then, big body would work. But then his timing got a little bit better. His rotations were a little bit smarter, I thought, as the season went on defensively. But offensively, that leap just never came, right? He didn't do what Nate Biddle did. And I don't know if it's because he's not as much of a gym rat as he needs to be, or because the way he plays, and this is what I was teasing before the ad read, was he doesn't have a Kenny Wooten in him. He doesn't have a Jordan Bell in him, all right? But Kenny Wooten's the best example. Kenny Wooten was 6'9", and it feels like he played above the rim more than Kel'el Ware, who's 7 feet tall. It felt like Wooten was always going. He always had the motor, and Ware, you just kind of saw it in spurts. And maybe Oregon wasn't what he thought it would be, or he didn't he didn't connect with his teammates the way he'd like to, or the coaching staff. I don't know exactly what it was. But if you combine Kel'el Ware and Kenny Wooten, you'd have the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. But that motor, that drive just wasn't there play to play. And I think that kind of showed in Ware's lack of development at the offensive end.
I agree. I think that there's just some guys that just mentally, they're just in a different kind of mind space. And, Kel'el Ware probably would have benefited from having a big power forward next to him instead of having these smaller lineups that he had, and he was a part of them. I mean, when he came in, he usually came in at the second unit. He usually came in when you had Quincy as the only other big in there. And, that's really just not going to cut it. The way that the Oregon plays, he feels kind of on an island down low. He was getting taken advantage of big time early in the year and just completely dominated. Any of the bigs that really were big would slam him around pretty good. He couldn't hang with the big body guys. Dante always had to hang with those guys. But you're right about Nate Biddle. Nate Biddle, what I really like about Nate was he was able to play every part of the floor. He could inbound the ball. He could help bring the ball up on the press break. He could catch the ball at the three-point line. He could catch the ball in transition, take a couple dribbles, pass the ball to the right man. He obviously could play down low. He could shoot the three. These are all things that Kel'el Ware never really developed in. And, he would kind of be able to get the ball down low, do his little thing, and get his little jumper, get his little turnaround jumper or hook, and which was great. And those buckets that he had were really important when he had them because as a second unit guy, you got to go out there and score and produce. But he was never quite at the level where you could really just, throw the ball down to him on every single play and expect good things because he was only doing that against single man coverage. He had any double team, he was in trouble. He did pass the ball out of the post pretty well, but Oregon couldn't shoot this year, so it didn't really matter anyway. So it was one of those deals. He'll be fine. He'll get to another spot, and I hope the best for him.
He shot it this year at just 27% from three, and Nate Biddle ended the year at 34%. Like that gap is even bigger than you think. The difference between over the course of a year, even just 2 or 3%, can be pretty notable. When you're talking a 7% gap, I think, based on what we saw, that's one of the things that kind of put Biddle into the spotlight as, Dante went out with an injury in the NIT and you had a void at the starting center position and Biddle snatched it because, Biddle had struggled with his 3-point shot at one point in time, but then it got better. and he was active defensively, and he was energetic, and he was working hard, and it looked like he'd worked on his post moves. And Ware, I feel like he almost suffered from just a mindset of, I'm bigger and more athletic, because in Little Rock, Arkansas, that's not a big place. He's not going up against high-level competition there. He played in some events, McDonald's All-American game, these big, elite tournaments and whatnot, but overall, he wasn't consistently going up against guys who could push him around, who were, not 6'6", but an athletic 6'6", and can suddenly challenge him at the rim, force him not to foul, back him down, push him out of the paint. It just seems like he never really adjusted, and I thought he would need to, and he really never did. And Biddle, to his credit, I'm stoked that Nate Biddle is back, because I look at what he did, I'm like, man, he was going up against some really quality teams at the mid-major level, sure, but that's something Oregon struggled with this year, and we see how good mid-majors are, generally speaking, across the country, and he's putting up 20 and 10 all the time.
Yeah, I think that also shows that 1 year, extra year of development. I think if you were to have Kel'el Ware come back one more year, off season in the weight room, with the training group, getting his body right, because he did look tall, he did look small, he looked tall and thin, which is never the right really combination you need.
And slow too, and like you said, he's not fleet of foot.
No, and also he didn't really play fast. He also I don't know if he is actually physically fast. He also mentally didn't really want to play that fast either, it feels like. It's a weird situation. I think that the transfer portal is going to be good for a guy like him, but you know what? This is a year that Frank Kepnong really could have helped, right? Because, you bring him in. If he would have stayed here, he would have been a real physical presence that could have given you real good activity. And then you possibly could have had those guys like Nate and Kel'el Ware out on the outside. But those guys just can't hang with the defense on the three, and especially Kel'el Ware got really exposed defensively anywhere outside of the basket. So it's all good. On to the next one. It's a tough one, but it is what it is. I still think Oregon's in a good spot. Watching the All-American game, like you talked about, McDonald's All-American game, and seeing guys that are going to be Ducks next year on that team is nice. But again, it's a major jump between that and D1 college basketball, so we'll see how it goes. The transfer portal also is affecting everybody. Look at all these teams that are losing guys.
Yeah.
Top quality team, top quality guys. They're all leaving. So
I saw the other day. I do TV play-by-play for Southern Utah. They're in the Western Athletic Conference for men's basketball. The other day, there were 42 players in the portal. 42 in a 13-team league. You had 42 guys in the portal. That's just kind of what it is now. And Oregon's got to be able to shoot better. They didn't have a single guy, Ryan, who shot it, with an actual number of attempts, who shot it at 36% or above. Bartholomew was just below 36%. Not only did they not have a sniper, they didn't have a good slew of shooters. It was just, it was a constant struggle. You know it. I know it. Dana knows it too. Once the coach is saying, we got to shoot better. Yeah.
Yeah. The whole coaching staff, they just couldn't explain it. They were like, hey, what we did in the past has always worked. We did it with this group for the last couple of years, because it was not good last year either. So
yeah, no, it's something they need to address. Guys need to improve. They got to add different players. And look, there's a lot of potential there, but yeah, Dana's got to make the tournament. And missing it 3 years in a row, he's just set a different standard.
Yeah, and I think they will next year. I think they should have this year. They just fumbled the bag.
They should have each of the last 2 years. But if they could just stop losing stupid games, they would have been in the tournament each of the last 2 years. They're not. Right. It's not like they have a Grand Canyon-sized chasm away from getting into the field of 68. But Ryan's got to go enjoy that lovely sunset and the beach behind him. He's Rian Winter, Sports Chat 503 on YouTube and Twitter. Ryan, love you coming on the show as always, and I know the people appreciate it too.
You're the man. Appreciate you. Have a great one. Thanks so much. Go Ducks.
Appreciate everyone listening. Have a wonderful rest of your day and a great weekend. Go Ducks.